Let's start off by going over the pack that I'm planning on starting with. So this is a Nashville Packs Cutaway. So it is a ultralight frameless pack, roughly 40-ish liters, I think they call it. It's made out, I got to pick all the fabrics for this. I had it custom made. So I chose the white mesh to help reduce some of the sun heat from getting the water bottles too hot. And this is an EPL Ultra 200, which is the material I used on the CDT and thought very highly of it. A couple things that I've added that aren't common, or at least don't come with it. I've got these kind of heavy-duty locking safety pins. On the CDT last year, I lost two individual socks from the safety pins that I had while they were drying. So I ended up switching to something a little bit more heavy-duty that locks a little better. This is a Garmin Tempe. It syncs with my Garmin watch so I can see how cold it got at night. This is my little trail mascot, my Lynx. I've brought this on every thru hike I've ever done. So yeah, it would be silly to not bring it on the last of the Triple Crown. Flipping it over, I've got a thin light Gossamer gear pad that's been cut down a little bit. So it's about 3/4 body length and it's a little bit narrower, so it fits here well. I am planning on starting off with these light AF waist hip belts. I know there's an argument about like a frameless pack not really benefiting much from the hip belt, but I've tested it quite a bit, and these are so lightweight. They're 2 ounces for the pair. It's so lightweight that I think that it's worth starting with, and if I find that I really am not using them, I can always mail them home. The Nashville packs are sort of famous for their running strap style shoulder strap. So there's pockets here that are big enough to fit a 1 liter smart water bottle, a second pocket there, and a shoulder pocket there. It's of course the same for both. Another thing I added was a small little mitten clip, and this is for my headphones. I have, I'll show them in a little bit. They're the Shocks kind, and this clips in so I can have them on the outside here and not lose them. Another thing that's kind of unique to the pack is it has this shelf here. So you can keep all of your little doodads up here where they won't be likely to fall out. There's a little clip here, toggle rather. It gives you access to that. And then the last thing that's really unique is that this is one giant pocket on the back. So water bottles can go in, or whatever you put on the side here, and you can put things in the middle. And if you're flexible enough, you can reach past the water bottles and get things out of here or put them away. So that's kind of cool. Also, the bottom pocket on this, you have access to from the middle rather than from one side. So you can reach back either with your left or right hand. So you can kind of utilize the space a little bit better, at least in my opinion. I do plan on not using this pack in the Sierra. Having to carry a heavy bear can, I just don't want to go through the hassle. I know people have done it, but I am already kind of on the border of thinking that this can work for me or not. I've considered taking a more heavy duty pack like 800 times. I want to at least start with this, see if I can commit to that kind of system, and if not, I will swap out earlier to my other pack. I'm not going to go into full detail, but this is the pack that I plan to switch to either if the frameless pack is giving me issues, if I can't handle it, or when I get closer to the Sierra, because this is a lot bigger and carries weight much more comfortably. So I think it'll do better with the bear can and some winter clothes. This is a Superior Wilderness Designs ultra light long haul 50 liter. I've added this little mesh pocket here. I put my wet things out there to dry. Nice big water bottle pockets. This pack does have a frame system very similar to the Hyperlight Mountain Gear style packs. I use my phone in here. This mesh is for my trash. Got a brand new hip belt on there because the hip belt that I had from the last one, I found that I got just skinny enough that I could barely cinch it all the way down. So this is one size smaller. So I think that'll fit better after a thru hike too. This is new as well. Dual pockets there. And then one thing that's really neat about this is you can fit a folded other half of a thin light pad in here for back support and comfort, but also you can use it around camp or as a sit pad. Moving on to sleep systems. This is a Timmermade Wren 10 degree bag. They call it their winter Wren. It's a false bottom sleeping bag as opposed to a quilt. So it's kind of like a quilt with the two sides sewn in place. There is a pad strap. I toss and turn a lot, so I do plan on taking this. If I find that it's annoying or if I'm not using it much, I can always take it off and mail it home. There's definitely pros and cons to a false bottom sleeping bag. It's definitely not for everyone. If you're a very sound sleeper, a quilt is a lot more versatile because you can vent and use it as a blanket and things. However, this is a way to make this sleeping bag lighter And for people like me that roll over a lot and thrash, it works better for me than a quilt. I've tried quilts. So this doesn't do anything amazing and magic. It's kind of like a hybrid between a regular sleeping bag and a quilt. And it serves a special purpose for folks that can benefit from it. But it's not like you should go out and buy this immediately if you do well with quilts. This is a system that works pretty good for me. So this is a hood made by the same company that can go with that. You put it on, there's 2 little snaps. And then it has a synthetic face covering part here that kind of closes the gaps. And if it's really cold, you can actually open this up and cinch these, and you can give yourself a really small breathing hole. And because this is so breathable and synthetic, you're not breathing into the down. The other advantage is when you roll over in it, it allows the hood to stay with your head, so you always have that breathing hole right there, so you're not turning your head into the back of a mummy hood. This also pairs with my jacket, which I can use one hood for the 2 things, so it saves a little bit of weight and pack space. So moving on, this is slightly modified Thermarest Neo Air X Lite NXT. This is the wide width, so 25 inches wide. And what I've done is I've used some seam grip and taped on these patches with these small sewn loops. And there's a reason for that, and the reason is right here. It's because this is my custom sewn pillow system. So I put some mitten clips and some elastic on these 2 tabs on the sides. And I will show you what this looks like and how it attaches. And it's one of my most proud things that I've ever made for backpacking. So I sized this to fit my warm layers that I don't plan on sleeping in at night. So the first step is to take my down puffy, put that in. It's then easier to take my pillow, which is a Nemo Philo Luxury. It's just the inside, it comes with its own pillowcase, but I don't like to use that one because I like this system better. So I intentionally take my hood and put it closer to the end, so if I wake up and I'm really cold, I can just reach in and grab it. And I made a little hole there. Oops, gotta open it. So the result is a nice soft argan fabric, which is like now, and it's very smooth. Still has this out so I can reach over. And the way that I did this is so I can take the valve side and keep it by the valve here, so it's designed to clip in like so. It's easier to clip out than in. But anyway, you got it. The mitten clips go into those, so that really keeps this from moving around. I spent a bunch of time and energy trying to come up with a system that would keep my pillow right where I wanted it. And ultimately, this is what I found, because I'm always lying down trying to press it off. That moves right up to the top, and this works really, really well for me. Super soft, warm. I'm really happy with it. So hopefully my modifications end up holding up. This is another thing that I made that I consider part of my sleep system. I used some scraps from the fabric from this, and I went to a craft store and bought some light black curtain fabric. It made myself an ultralight sleep mask. Unlike what you'd think, the soft, slippery side is actually what goes against my face, so when I blink, my eyelashes and stuff have less friction on that. And it's sized specifically to fit my head. And I think I'll keep this inside there too, so if I wake up and the moon's really full, then I can throw that on. One other thing to show off with my sleep system. So one other thing I want to show off with my sleep system is this custom pad inflator that I made. I do have a video on how to make this if you want to make one for yourself in my videos. I'll put a link down in the description. But essentially it is a nozzle that's meant to fit the newer style wing lock Thermarest valves. And this is my pack liner. It allows me to use it as an inflator to keep my moisture out of there and to not get all lightheaded and huffy puffy every night. There's this little shock cord loop here that if I'm really expecting wet conditions, which this trail shouldn't have much of, I can cinch this down and really kind of pinch it off, but I never used that even once on the CDT, so I probably won't here. But let me do a quick demo of what it's like. I'm sure it's gonna be really crinkly, so I'll turn the volume way down. So there we go, here's what it looks like. So that is designed so it can't really fall off. False top sleeping bag, or false bottom rather, sleeping bag does have a draw cord thing up here, so that'll go like that, and then the hood is in here if I need it, if I'm really chilly. So anyway, this is my kit. For when things do get warmer, a 10 degree might be too much. I have a very similar sleeping bag to this, also made by Timbermade. It's the same color and everything. It's called the Serpentis model. It's a 20 degree and it's a lighter weight version. So that I can switch to. I find it to be a little bit cool of a bag for a 20 degree rating. I would personally call it closer to like a 30 degree bag. So that's probably what I will switch to if I find that I'm too hot in this thing. All right, we can go through the rest of the things a lot more quickly. So in this stuff sack here is a Z-Packs Xmid pocket tarp with doors. I did a little bit of modifications to it. I put some magnetic closures on the doors because that seems like a quality of life thing. Attached to it with Z-Packs kit, there's an attachment kit that goes to the plus size DCF bathtub floor. So it all stays together kind of like a bug mesh-less tent, but I can separate it and use just the ground sheet for sleeping under the stars, which is what I plan on trying to do most of the time, which is why the eye mask really helps. And then in here I have 8 mini groundhog stakes. I used to have some carbon ones, but some kind folks that commented on my videos said that they thought those wouldn't be great in the desert. And that makes sense, so I'd rather carry something that's tried and true. For packed clothing, this is a Senshi 60 weight. I think they call it the Ren model. I added the half zip because I like to be able to dump the heat and it makes it easier to get it on and off in the sleeping bag or in the tent. So that's my warm layer. These are some Farpoint designs. Sleep socks, Alpha Direct sleep socks. They weigh less than an ounce for the pair and they're very warm, so I like to have those when my feet are cold. And then this is also made by Farpoint. It's a pair of Alpha 90 weight tights or long pants, whatever you want to call them. So that's my sort of warm layers, and for sleeping if I'm very cold. I prefer to not sleep in clothing, so those are really only if I'm very cold or if I'm wet and I need to get warm in camp. For other packed clothes, I'm not bringing much. These are some Montbell Tachyon wind pants. I did a little bit of customizing to them and used some more scrap of that fabric to make a little pocket on the inside that's sized exactly to fit my phone and my tiny little travel wallet. I found that I almost only used rain pants, these are just wind pants, but I used those on my laundry days on the CDT, and none of the stuff I had any pockets, so it was really annoying because I'd usually try to go get a bite to eat while my clothes are in the laundry wearing my rain gear, and I'd have to carry my wallet and my phone. It was annoying, so I'm trying to adapt, so hence that. Here we've got another Timbermade item. This is their DCF rain jacket. Yes, I know it's a very hot trail, and yes, I know DCF is not breathable. However, I've never found a raincoat that doesn't eventually wet out on me, and because I plan on hopefully not using this very much, I'm planning on going with something really lightweight. I did have him add these custom big pit zips, which should really help dump the heat. And truth be told, I'll probably use this more for warmth and for really windy up high walking than I will for the rain based on the weather of this trip. But it seems silly to carry around a really heavy duty, super waterproof jacket that I don't use much, so I'm gonna try this out. One pair of spare Darn Tough quarter length socks. And then another thing that some folks were pointing out in my last video before I started changing a few things around was they thought I'd want some kind of gloves. And I found personally that on the CDT, I didn't really use the gloves that I had brought much. They were just the really thin, fleecy kind that you get from like Z-Packs or something. And I found the time that I really wanted them the most was when it was wet and really windy. So those gloves don't work really well for either of those things. So eventually I bought some rain mitts on a day that it was really cold. So these are a breathable DCF rain mitt. And what I found is I can use my sleep socks, which are never really that gross because I do wash my feet quite a bit. If I take the thumb, like my thumb, and put it where the heel goes, because these are shaped socks, I can take these, they fit comfortably inside. So now I have a windproof, waterproof, and Alpha Direct insulated mitt. And these rain mitts, even though I don't expect a lot of rain, can really help when it's very, very cold, or if you have to wash things in camp and it's around freezing or below freezing. So I decided to use what I already had, as well as a very lightweight multi-purpose setup to try to get some level of gloves into the kit. I was playing around with what I wanted to use for a hat. So this is a hat that I had made for me by a guy from Europe through Etsy. His shop's called Alpenlight. And so this is a thin insulated hat with an Alpha Direct earband. It's extremely warm, it weighs less than an ounce, and I plan on using this more for sleeping when I don't want to have the hood on, but I can certainly use it in the morning or around camp too. So I wasn't sure if I wanted something more fleecy, like a wool beanie or something, but I plan on trying this out. Can always swap it out partway through. For sun, this is a sun day afternoon adventure hat. I used the same hat on the CDT with great success. Folding brim makes it so you can put it in the side pockets of the pack pretty easily. Meshy on the top for breathability, some reflector for safety. You can cinch it down really tight. My head is just barely small enough to fit the small size, but the big size would probably fit me too loosely. And then of course it's got a chin cord here so it doesn't blow away. I do plan on starting with these just so I don't have to put as much sunscreen on my hands at first until my hands and skin are used to being in the sun for so many hours a day every day. Again, I'm probably going to do the same thing I did with these OR sun gloves as I did on the CDT, which is use them for the first week to week and a half until I've got kind of a good baseline, and then just switch to sunscreen and mail these home. To go over worn clothing, I have always used Dirty Girl gaiters, but my brother-in-law got me some of the Ultra ones for a Christmas present, so I'm definitely going to give these a whirl. They work in the same way. So I am using Ultra Lone Peak 7s. I bought a whole bunch of them because they're on sale. That's the shoe that I used last year on my last through hike, so I know that it should work for me unless my feet have changed, which I don't think they have. They worked really well for me, so I bought 4 pairs of them, so hopefully that'll get me at least most of the way through this whole trip. And these gaiters are specially designed to fit those, so I think they'll work well as a pairing. The shirt that I'm wearing is an Outdoor Research Echo Sun hoodie. It's the same exact color and size of the one that I used on the CDT. I was blown away with how breathable, comfortable it was, how low the odor was, how the stains washed out. I never got sunburnt through it. The list goes on and on and on. It's one of my most impressive pieces of gear, or at least that impresses me the most, is what I'm trying to say. So I'm going with the same exact thing. This is a brand new one of that, but same deal. And then for my shorts that I'm wearing, it's the Patagonia 9 Trails shorts. They're a 5-inch inseam running short. They come with a liner inside. I've cut the liner out because I don't like the built-in liner. Instead, I am bringing and wearing 1 pair of these Echo Outdoor Research boxer shorts. I carried a spare pair for half of the CDT until I realized that I never ended up using them, ended up mailing them home. So there you go. I'm just wearing the 1 pair, and if those aren't currently wearable for some reason, then I will just go without them until I can wash them. It won't be the end of the world. A lot of people don't bring any, so that's my system for that. I've always had issues sweating. I don't power walk, and I'm not a super fast hiker. I like to hike long days all day, but I do kind of find that my style of walking is slightly aggressive. Like I don't really slow down for the uphills, and I don't take a lot of breaks. So I've always ended up needing to put something on my forehead as a sweatband to keep the sweat from going into my eyes. And so I'm going to try out this brand here. It's a company called Halo. It's really light, breathable mesh. I chose black so I can cook this in the sun to dry it really fast. It'll almost always be on underneath my sun hood or my sun hat, so I don't think the black will be too bad. But what's kind of unique is it has a bead of a silicone there, which is meant to go over your eyebrows to help reduce the sweat getting into your eyes. So we'll try this out and see how it goes. I won't wear it every single minute of every single day, but for times that I have to go uphill with a heavier pack, it'll probably come in handy. These are new to me. They're Ambras sunglasses. They basically don't have hard arms. They used this cord. So the benefit of that is there's less parts to break on them. They fold up smaller, they're lighter, and I find them very comfortable. I've been using them a lot around here and for practice trips, and I'm impressed with them, and I think they'll do good. I did have a pair of Shady Rays on the CDT that about 7/8 of the way through, one of the arms did break, so you can't break arms that you don't have. This isn't really clothing, but it kind of fits in. So I use, I've always, for the last bunch of years, I've used DCF single wall tents or tarps, and condensation is just part of the game, like it happens. And I also do wash my feet as much as I can at camp. The list goes on and on. The point I'm trying to make is that I do think it's worth bringing an ultralight towel, and anything that I can bring that uses that I can use for more than one purpose is a bonus. So this, of course, can be a sign as well as a towel. And even though you can kind of see through it, I've actually played around with it, and when you're not so close to it, the letters actually pop out and look a lot cleaner than they do because you can kind of see through in the white. But anyway, that's my towel. This is my water setup. It's the same that I used on the Continental Divide Trail last year, and it worked extremely well, so I'm going to go with the same setup. So I use a 3-liter Canuck dirty bladder here. One thing that I did just kind of geek out with, like, these types of things are super fun to me. You definitely don't need them, but what this is it's an adjustable slider, so you can take this off and throw it over a tree branch or something, and then it comes on like so. And it makes it so when you pull this way, it doesn't slide, but this is designed so that you can rotate it. It works a lot better when it's actually on something. So when it's actually on something, it's designed so you can take this and you can cinch it and it stays pull, kind of like a guy line tightener in a tent. I love little doodads like this, so that's right up my alley. So I ended up picking this up from Common Gear. They have an Etsy shop that I picked up a bunch of their things from, so I'm excited to try that. Last time I just used a little tiny, one of those little metal carabiners and some thin cord, so that's something new. This is one of the exact water bottles that I used the entire CDT, and it held up just fine. I'm gonna see if it can make it through another 2,000 plus mile trip. One thing that was a bit of an annoyance that I didn't really think of that would be a thing was dealing with the caps of these water bottles. So when I'm using this system, the way that I do it is a gravity setup. So I fill up this with dirty water. That goes into this side of my Sawyer squeeze, and then I use the coupler on here. And the reason that I do that is because it allows me to use this as a gravity filter. The trick is you tighten it all the way and then you back off the water bottle a little bit so air can escape. So you have to do that, it's important. But anyway, so I hang this up and let gravity sort of do its thing. But meanwhile, while it's hanging like this, the caps are somewhere. And so every time that I swap out the bottles as they fill up, I would have to find the caps. And there was more than a few times that I spent a bunch of time looking around for them. Sometimes they were in my pockets, sometimes they got stepped into the dirt. It was just a little bit annoying. So I saw that same company, Common Gear, made these little caps that you can't lose. So I figured, hey, that might just be something that makes my chores a little bit easier. So I'm gonna go for it. So I'm overly excited about something so simple as that, but I'll definitely report how they work. I plan on bringing 4 water bottles, and all 4 of them have this customized cap thing. This is my sort of hygiene setup here. So I actually have sleep apnea, so this is a professional mouth guard to prevent sleep apnea, so I have to wear this every night. Part of the hardship of using a backpacking is keeping it clean. So because it's all gross in your mouth, I do have to wash it every day. So I bring a small thing of Dr. Bronner's and this tiny little scrub brush for that. So that's kind of mandatory, but I need it. I used a regular bamboo toothbrush, and then I keep this cap on here to try to keep some of the grossness from getting on the bristles. I've personally found this Bogler Co. style trowel is a big improvement over the Deuce of Spades that's really popular. The little bit of plastic here means you can really kind of push down and it doesn't jab into your hands. And I like that it has these little holes because it makes it lighter, of course, but also I've never used it for this, but if you had to, you could use it as like a snow anchor by burying it sideways, like a Deadman's anchor in the snow or something, and put a guy line in there. The versatility of it is kind of nice. It's also a tiny bit lighter, but this is the same one I used last year and it worked really well, so I plan on using it. Nothing fancy to see in here. It's just an oversized DCF stuff sack that I keep toilet paper and hand sanitizer in. I go with such a huge bag because a brand new roll, if you leave town with a huge one, you can't oftentimes fit it into your little dry bags as easily. At least that's my system, so this just makes it easier. And then, so the same thing, right? Keep giving a plug out to this Common Gear company. They included this as a free gift when I purchased the other things, and it's one of those little backpacking bidet things. I've never actually used a backpacking bidet for its intended purpose, but what I've found with this is that, and this is brand new, never used for that, but what I found with this is it's made to screw it into the smart water bottle. And last year on the CDT, trying to clean this thing out, I wasted a lot of water pouring out of the water bottle directly. And it was kind of overkill. I probably wasted a lot more water than I needed to because it was kind of hard to get just enough water in there. But I actually played around with it and it works really well. Is if I screw this onto the smart water bottle, I have almost like a little tiny squeeze bottle that has a fine line of a very small amount of water, and I can use it to clean my mouth guard. So as gross as it sounds to wash the thing from my mouth off with a bidet, this to me is more of an intended mouth guard cleaner rather than for cleaning your butt, and I've never used it for that, so we'll see if that's worth the wait or not. Moving on to electronics. So these are the Shox bone conduction earphones that I like to use. I really enjoy listening to books, recorded audiobooks while I walk, especially in areas that are like dirt roads or a little bit mundane. So I use these for that most days, or podcasts or something. I really like these a lot. They don't go inside your ear, so you actually have your ears open and exposed, and you can kind of hear things that are going on around you. They also have microphones built into them, so you can use these to make phone calls, which is kind of nice if I'm going to talk with my wife while I walk and I don't have to reach up and hold something to my ear. And then there are controls on these too, so there's volume and on and off. It wirelessly charges through its own proprietary little USB cord thing, so I do have to bring a charger specifically for this. However, this charges from dead to full in about an hour, and you can listen to 12 to 14 hours of audiobook before you need to recharge it. So I've never had to recharge this partway through a day. It's always lasted me a full day of movement. So anyway, if you haven't tried these, consider it. They're really pretty nice. I was back and forth with what size battery to bring and whatnots, and I ended up going with this one. So it's an INU 20,000 milliamp hour battery. It's a 65 watt output charge, which is more than I need for anything. My smartphone, which I'm recording on right now, is another electronic I'm bringing, which is a Samsung Galaxy S22 Ultra, which is a bit of a mouthful. But anyway, that phone can charge at up to 45 watts, so this can charge that phone as fast as any wall charger and battery combo can do. So it can essentially charge my phone from dead to full in under 2 hours, which is great. And also a big thing about these battery banks is the input charging speed. I did a lot of geeking out and learning more about electricity for these when I was researching what I wanted to go with. And one of the reasons that I ended up going with this particular one is because it can charge at 45 watts, which is fast in the world of battery banks. So what that means is that this 20K battery can be 100% dead, and I can charge it from dead to full in about 2 hours. So that to me is the difference between stopping at a restaurant in town, topping off my battery and heading back out on the trail the same day versus needing something that takes 8 hours to charge, which basically means I need to get a motel or a hostel and charge it overnight. So I like the flexibility of that. There's plenty of times that I could top this thing off at a restaurant or something on the way. We'll see how it goes. I had a lot of battery bank issues on the CDT. If you've watched my videos, you know I had that fail and it actually destroyed one of my smartphones. So anyway, that's a different video. This is a Moken charger. So this I really like. It's a lot lighter than the other one that I had. Has 2 USB-C outputs and folding prongs. So when you only charge out of one of these, it can charge at 45 watts, which is perfect because that's the max speed that this battery bank can charge at, and it's also the max speed that my phone can charge at. So anything more powerful than this 45 watts is not helpful to me. Or you can use both of these at the same time and it won't output at 45 watts, it'll output at like 15 or something, which is great if I need to charge headlamps or this thing or whatever. But new to me, this will be the first trip I use it on. Moving on to my cables, it looks like a lot. There's actually just 2 USB-C to C cables in there of different lengths. It is a lot of cable, but I found on other thru hikes that I like to have a little bit longer cable because sometimes the plugs aren't in inconvenient spots. So having the little dinky ones doesn't let you plug it into the wall. You'd have to plug it into the battery bank. But anyway, this is a little adapter that's proprietary for my Garmin watch, which is a Garmin Fenix Sapphire 7 Solar. It needs its own special charger. So that's what this is. The one other cable that isn't in here right now is the one that's for those headphones because it's currently plugged into my computer because I use these headphones every day when I walk my dog. Lastly, a Garmin InReach Mini 2. I doubt this is the first time you've ever seen one of these. It's a satellite communication thing. I can use in an emergency or to just talk with people when I don't have cell service. Moving on to my kitchen setup. This is a Hilltop Packs DCF food bag. that I think is funny. It held up really well. There's no holes in it. Long-handled titanium spoon. I like the spoons better than the sporks. There's almost never a time I need to stab the tines into my food, and the spoon just is nicer. This is a 1 liter Vargo bot, which is titanium. It's kind of unique because it has a screw-off lid with a removable silicone gasket. So you can actually fill this with water and close it, and it's watertight, which lets you cold soak if you want, or also you can use it as a 1 liter water bottle. You can turn the lid over, and then it doesn't seal. You'd never want to have it sealed with water in it on the stove. That's how you create an explosive. Again, I geeked out with some not necessary but fun things. So I put some little silicone tubing on here so it's not as hot to touch and a little bit more comfortable to hold. Another thing that I have, which is kind of fun and not 100% necessary, is this 3D printed canister stand. This is what they call a pot protector. I got this off of Etsy. And so it's just a 3D printed ring. And what that does, if you've ever stored canisters in metal pots before, they do rust because these have steel rings on the bottom. So this makes it so the steel isn't touching the inside of your pot, so if you put it away wet, it doesn't rust. And then they have these fun little legs that can go on and turn it into a base like that. So again, more things that aren't really super necessary that I just find fun, so I'm bringing them. My stove. This is a Soda Windmaster. I have both the sizes of the top pot supports, but this one fits this very well, so that's the one that I'm bringing. I just changed out the Piezo starter because it failed on me during the CDT, but there's a brand new one in there, so hopefully that works out. That little stove is very fuel efficient, and I store it in this little DCF bag to keep this stove from getting too gross or from keeping this less rusty, because again, there's steel on this, so things that are wet in the pot have caused a little bit of rust on my stoves before. So one other little bonus fun fact about this is that I don't know if they intended it to be this way, they probably didn't, but what I found is we all know this noise, right? Right, like it's basically you throw your stuff in there and while you're walking you can hear your metal crap banging around. Well, what I found is I can take these little feet and I can put them in and act as wedges. And so when I put them as wedges, it actually doesn't allow it to shake at all. In fact, it even makes it secure enough that it doesn't move in there at all, which is nice, right? Because it's doing multiple purposes at the same time, which I'm trying to do as much as I can. So when I take my stove lid thing off, that fits sideways in there. So you have a nice quiet little pot, which if you've backpacked long distances before and that rattles around, that can drive you nuts. All right, we're gonna move on to what I consider like ditty bag items or miscellaneous things. And there's another multi-purpose system here that I feel like is worth trying out for the weight. And so what I mean by that is that these waist belt, hip belt things come off this pack very easily. It comes off like so I can mail them home if I don't want them. But what I found is that I can actually connect these to these little loops here on this through pack summit bum. Put it on backwards, but you get the idea. And I can turn this fanny pack into its own waist pack for around town. And so my thought was, okay, well, I'm already planning on bringing some kind of bag to organize all my little miscellaneous things, first aid kit, repair kit, knife, all that stuff. So if I do use this, I can wear it if I like that. There's a spot back here that your phone can slide into, which appeals to me to always have my phone handy. And then also there's a divider in here. I won't have any keys with me, but there's a little clip there. And then some organizers for wallets and stuff. But anyway, my idea was that there's times that I've gone to resupply in town or just to walk around and I don't have my pack with me. This I could wear by itself around town with the included waist belt. So it's kind of like I can use these two things together for a different purpose. Out of all the things that I might send home and end up not liking and using, this is probably the first thing that I would mail home, just because I can use a much lighter stuff sack and maybe I don't want the waist belts. But after doing some practice hikes with it, I kind of like it enough to at least want to try it out. So anyway, that's my plan, is to use this as a ditty bag and use the waist straps, hip belt, for both systems. This is my sort of ditty bag or miscellaneous items. I really like to have some synthetic cord. I can use this little hook here to stake things out. It's actually designed to be like a pack hanger, I think. Like you take this and you loop it around a tree and then you kind of loop it around here and it makes it so you can hang things off of trees. I haven't really used it for that, but it's just kind of handy. So a little piece of cord there, a longer piece of cord there. This is made by the Dutchware company, which does a lot of titanium accessories for hammocks, as well as a lot of other things, but this is one of the things that they make. It's designed specifically to work with this diameter cord, and it has a little cleat there. So this makes hanging your food bag, if you need to, very, very easy, because you don't need to use or know any knots, even though I'm a climbing instructor and I know a lot of knots. You can just kind of pull your thing up and then the little cord just bites into there like so. And it's like a little mooring post if you're familiar with boats. Anyway, makes things really fast and easy. And technically this is a little carabiner too. So if I have to do the PCT method of bear hanging, which requires a carabiner-like thing, I can use this for that. Anyway, let's move on. Little wallet, just enough for some cash and a couple credit cards and an ID. It's made by Hartford Gear Co., which I live in Connecticut, so I like to support local people that make stuff. Various pills. I have a couple of prescription medications that I need to take daily, so I will use these to keep them from getting crushed, as well as some Advil PM, and just regular Aleve in case the aches and pains are bad. I'm a light sleeper. I actually have a hearing disability. My left ear doesn't work very well, so I only need to use one earplug at night. But I do like to bring one in case I'm by a busy road or with other hikers that are snoring. Headlamp is the Nightcore NU25. I'm sure it's not the first time you've seen this. It's rechargeable, quite bright for what it is, lots of features, has a red light and a lock. My knife of choice is this Swiss Army knife. This is the Messenger. Or no, it's the Manager. It's called the Manager, not the Messenger. But anyway, it's very similar to the Classic, but instead of the tools that the Classic has, it has a couple different things. It has a magnetized Phillips head screwdriver with a bottle opener. And then the thing I like the most about it is it has a Fisher Space Pen style pen. And you can fold out the file and you can actually use it to write. You wouldn't want to write a lot with it, but it's always a pen on you, which can come in handy. This is my tiny little first aid kit. There's a nice pair of steel tweezers, the sharp kind, so I can dig cactus spines, ticks, whatever that I have to out of my body, and some little butterfly strips, band-aids, not a whole heck of a lot. There is some Benadryl and some Imodium in there too, in case I have a need for those. And then these are for my repair kit. There's some Luco Plus tape rolled up on this little plastic dowel, some DCF patch repair, inflatable pad repair kit. This is a little one-time use super glue, a spare gasket for my filter, and some zip ties. And in here, inside this, there are a few safety pins and needle and thread. I store all of that in this little Z-Packs stuff sack. Very briefly talk about consumables. Being in the sun all the time is part of thru hiking, especially out west, so sun protection is an absolute must. I burn very easily, especially in the spring after a long winter. So this is my favorite sunscreen in this little small, very lightweight tube. So the brand is the Blue Lizard. It's an Australian company that makes reef safe and less chemically made sunscreen. That's UPF 50, works really well. I found this stuff thanks to my wife, and once I started using it, I loved it. It goes into your skin really nice and doesn't leave you all oily and slimy. So I like to keep a little bottle of it someplace handy that I can grab and put a little bit more on my face or the back of my hands throughout the day, and I usually keep the rest of the bottle inside the pack because I don't need to go to the big one, and I just top this one off when I need to. This is an SPF 30 lip stuff. Helps lips not get sunburnt and keeps them moisturized because in the desert they dry out really easily. It's pretty important. And then I've found in the past that I don't need to use Body Glide for chafing after the first couple of weeks, but I definitely need to use it in the first couple of weeks. As I get into better shape, all of the sweat that I sweat out with the salt gets really chafy. And without really needing to explain to anybody the details, this stuff really helps with my upper thighs and my butt. You can also use that, some people use that to help reduce blisters. Like if they're getting blisters, they'll put some of that on the skin before they put moleskin or something over it. I've never had to use it for that, but I've heard that some people do use the Body Glide for that. So this box is the box of things that I might ask my wife to send me box. So I'll go through it really quick because this is already a really long video. This is the comfy strap that ThruPack makes for their fanny packs. I have it, however, because I'm using my waist belt, I keep calling it a waist belt, it's a hip belt. Because I'm using that with that fanny pack already, I don't plan on needing this, but if for some reason I find that I really want this, it's readily available. I use these Superfeet inserts I have for many, many years, and I'm starting with a brand new pair of them in my shoes and have a spare pair here. Sounds kind of silly to have to swap those out partway through, but I actually did have some blister issues in the beginning of my trip because I started with some that were already towards the end of their life last time, and they ended up being an issue. So starting off with a brand new pair and have that on hand. Learn from your mistakes. A couple other things that I have in my maybe I'll want later pile. I do have a bigger steak bag with some of the full-size MSR groundhogs. I used these 4 on the CDT and they're still going strong. So if I find that the minis aren't giving me enough holding power, I can switch to these. I also do plan on having my Durston Xmid Pro 1 on standby. I used that tent for the CDT, worked out really well. I like it a lot. So I plan on switching to that when the bugs get bad if I need to, which I probably will switch to it to finish the trail with, probably after the Sierra would be my guess. We'll see. But I'll have those things on standby. So this is kind of my winter kit. I do have another Timbermade down jacket that's even warmer than the one that I've shown already. Actually, I didn't show it. Let's go over this first. So this is what they call their super duper ultralight down sweater. And it's just that, it's very, very minimalist. It's made out of a very, very thin fabric and 1,000 fill power down. So this thing is super light. It weighs only 5 ounces. It's much warmer than something like a Ghost Whisper. It's a pullover, doesn't have a hood included. And like I showed with my sleeping bag, this modular hood works both with this and with my sleeping bag. Now, I was getting ahead of myself, but I do have a thicker, warmer one of this. This is the Super Duper Ultralight 0.75 inches of loft. I also have their true winter version, which is a 1.5, so it's not quite twice as warm, but you get the idea, it's a lot thicker. So if I'm cold and I need something warmer than that one, I have a warmer hood and the warmer version of that, so that's kind of my winter layer. And this is some other things. If I find that that orange hat isn't working for me, I have a very thin wool cap that I might switch to if I want to wear this while walking. The other one I would probably overheat with. And then if those gloves aren't working and I want something with more dexterity, these are some NRS neoprene gloves that work very well for their weight. I do plan on switching over to real gloves if it's cold up high. I switched over to these in the San Juans last year. So these are some La Sportiva Alpha Direct gloves. They're very warm and breathable because they're not waterproof. And then I don't think I'll need these for this trip, but they're in the standby box. These are some sealskin waterproof socks, and I double line those with a thin Smart Wool merino wool liner. So I bring, if I end up swapping to this, which I don't think I will, I end up using 2 pairs of these liners and these socks. These are my favorite pant. I wear them all the time, even at home. I have probably like 6 pairs of these, both with the zip-offs and some without. But these are the Outdoor Research Ferrasi pants, in this case with the zip-offs. So I plan on wearing these shorts, the Patagonia shorts, but switching to these when it's cold enough that I might want pants. For winter traction, these are the Black Diamond spikes. And so they use a soft shell fabric that goes over the toe box of your shoe, which works a lot better for trail runners because you don't have quite the squeezing of the silicone style like the actual Microspike brand, Cartula ones. So these are the same ones that I used on the CDT, and I was impressed. They had really good traction, very easy to put on, and like I was just saying, the soft shell up on the top of the shoe does make a big difference. So that's what I plan on using for those. And if you're not familiar, this is a Black Diamond Whippet. It's the topic of a lot of controversy in a lot of online forums about using this as a self-arresting tool in place of a dedicated ice axe. My 2 cents on this, without going off on a big long rant, which I could very easily get carried away with, is that if you're trained to self-arrest, you can use this. This is the ads style one. They make one with a true ice axe spike. You can use this in soft snow to self-arrest. This is what I brought in the Continental Divide. It's made by an ice axe producing company for arresting on steep snow. So it can definitely do its purpose if you have taken the time to train with it and use it, which I believe that I have. I'm an instructor with the American Mountain Guide Association and have some experience practicing with this as well as being professionally trained with self-arresting with a true ice axe. So I'm comfortable using this. I wouldn't say it's for everybody, but anyway, there's my longer than I meant to rant about the Whippet. So these are my trekking poles of choice. They're the Black Diamond Alpine Carbon Cork, and they're a special one called a Whippet Ready, or WR. If you've ever seen the WR, that's what it stands for. I really like these trekking poles all by themselves for trekking poles, and I use these both with trekking pole tents and to set up my tarp. But what's kind of neat about these is it has this rubber piece up at the top that comes out. The Whippet has a steel thread. And it's very secure. And again, this is made by a company that also makes ice axes for arresting in snow. So that's why I bring it. And I've wrapped a whole bunch of 3M clear tape. I like this stuff a lot better than duct tape. And I've wrapped that around this pole to have access to. This is my tent that I'll switch to if I find that the tarp isn't working out for me, or if it gets buggy. No if involved, it will get buggy. But I plan on switching to a real tent after the desert and the snow, if there's any left in the Sierra. I don't plan on starting with it, but I want to have this on standby. We've all seen these. This is a bug head net. This is an OpSack. It's an odor-resistant food storage bag. And then this is an Ursack Kevlar food storage bag, and these pair together really well. I don't plan on using these. In fact, I didn't even use these on the CDT. I had them sent to me and ended up sending them home because I was able to do bear hangs all the time. This particular trail doesn't have grizzly bears, so I doubt I'll need these, but they're in my pile of maybe things anyway, so I figured I'd show them. I know that was a really long video. Thank you so much for sticking through or watching as much of it as you did. I really appreciate it. If you would be willing to like, comment, subscribe, that helps me out. I think this stuff should work out pretty well for me on the PCT based on the fact that I'm fresh off the CDT, but we'll see. I can always adapt as I need to. If you have any questions on any of this stuff or suggestions or comments, feel free to leave them below in the comments. I'll leave a couple links in the description of some other videos that I have out, including some tent reviews, especially on that Durston Xmid Pro one. I've got a really lengthy full 3,000 post trip review on that, as well as a whole series of my experience on the CDT. So check that stuff out if you're interested. Thanks so much for watching.